We are back. Boy, and it's raining outside, and that's why I'm rushing today. But here's the thing: we've got a great show for you today. We have, and what I'll do is, to my right here, and your left, is Julie, and to Julie's right is Margot. And they've got some great things to share with us today about the Society of Saint
Adalberts.
Adalberts.
Yes.
It's the Saint Adalberts. I gotta practice that. It's like a little tongue twister.
It is. Or you can say it in Polish, Bruce. It's Świętego Wojciecha.
I'm having a rough time saying it in English.
We'll get you speaking Polish yet.
But all I know in Polish is Jak się ma.
That's good. That's start.
Yeah. See. Okay. Now tell us what's been going on with Saint Albert.
Well, St. Adalbert's has, by the way, thank you for having us on the show again, Bruce.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. So St. Adalbert's, for those who didn't have a chance to hear the show in June when you were so kind to have us on, St. Adalbert's is a church in Pilsen, the Pilsen neighborhood of Chicago, and it has been a parish for over 142 years. This church was built by immigrants that lived in Pilsen and immigrated to the Pilsen neighborhood over 100 years ago. And it's not just any kind of a church. It is a cathedral-style church. It is quite a magnificent structure. We actually have a picture of it to show everybody the interior. And the interior of the church...
I'm going to go to the overhead.
You're going to go to... Okay, so...
Wait a minute.
Oops, the next one.
But do remember this. This is our contact information.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Tell me about the contact information while I figure this out.
While Bruce is looking for the right picture, we have here our contact information. Oh, there we have. Here we have a picture of the interior of the church, which you can see the two rows of columns on this side. Those are Carrara marble columns, and there's actually over 30 tons of Carrara marble in this church. Each one of those columns is worth about $250,000 today. And you can't see it from here, but above the altar there's a beautiful Tiffany half dome. It's quite a stunning piece of architecture and historically has been known as one of the most beautiful churches in Chicago.
Now, tell me about your organization. You have a nonprofit organization and you're doing something about this beautiful church and other services that you provide in the community.
So we are the Society of Saint Adalbert, and we were formed specifically to save this church, to come up with a plan to allow this church to survive for yet another 100+ years. And Margot will talk a little bit about the community programming, but our organization specifically is tasked with coming up with a viable plan to sustain this church and the entire property.
Okay, Margot, we're gonna just kick the ball over to you. We're gonna just go bandy back and forth here.
So obviously our plan, which is to convert the convent and originally the rectory to a house of pilgrimage. So basically a form of hotel that pilgrims can come and stay and have an urban pilgrimage basically at the church. This would provide enough cash flow for us to provide for the upkeep and the maintenance and the repair of the church, towers, and the rest of the buildings, and also to provide programming for the community. So our first step would be to talk to the aldermen to find out what programs are still needed in Pilsen. There are a number of programs going on right now. So, we could have, what ideas we've talked about would be a commercial kitchen where people can be trained in the restaurant business, they could be trained in the hotel business, so job training. We could have entrepreneurs start micro businesses with the commercial kitchen, training on how to operate a food truck. We could have general interest programs like ESL, English as a Second Language classes. So we have a wide variety of programs that we could do. So we'll see what the community wants us to do, and then if we have the facilities for that, then we can go ahead with those programs.
Now, let me ask you this. Right now, they're looking at condos, townhouses, and low-income housing. Is there a need? Is there a need for that, or is that some other developer's concept?
I'll let Julie handle that question.
So I'm the real estate broker, and Pilsen is a hot real estate market, has been for a number of years because of its proximity to downtown, and there's an L stop nearby, and also Pilsen is just a beautiful, culturally vibrant neighborhood. So the pressure is there to build additional housing, whether it's condominiums or townhomes or apartments or low-income housing. Developers are clawing their way into Pilsen. However, we have considered all of those options. We have looked at the financial aspect of putting that kind of a plan together, and we are finding that that is a short-term solution to the survival of the church. It's not a long-term revenue-generating solution to make sure that our church is around in another 50, 60, 70, 80 years. But the most important thing is that, Bruce, I'm sure you'll agree, we have what's going on in Chicago right now. Our communities are falling apart. We have a lot of issues, and as one of your callers mentioned on our last show, I think his name was Mark, who mentioned that when we were, little, when he was little, it was going to church every Sunday. And, there was a time in our not so distant past where schools and churches were the core of our communities. And according to the Pope of the Catholic Church, he said last year, there is a crisis of faith around the world. And so it seems to me that at times like this, we do see the crisis of faith in our own communities, and I think that we do have to go back to making our schools and our churches as part of the core of our communities. And so at times like this, we don't shutter churches, we don't raise them to the ground, we figure out ways to keep them meaningful and part of the fabric of the community. And so our plan, by converting, as Margot explained, the convent to a house of pilgrimage, a B&B style house of pilgrimage, that is a sustainable, self-sustaining plan that generates revenue every single day and doesn't require people to attend church in order to sustain the church. And so that is a financially viable and self-sustaining plan, and it also maintains the overall religious character of the church and the entire complex, which is the original purpose, as our immigrant forefathers intended for all of this. So we are really honoring our past.
I'm going to jump right in because you said something that really hits the nail right on the head. There are 6 institutions that make up society: church, school, government, business, home, and hospitals.
Yes.
And if you miss one of those institutions, your society begins to go on the decline. And so, which leads me to the next question I have. What plans do you have to save this church? What plans?
Well, the plan keeps the entire property intact, and I think, Bruce, there's a picture I have here if you want to pull it up to show our audience. It's actually a picture of the entire campus where there's a church in the middle, there's a 3.5-story convent to the right, there's a 3-story rectory to the left of the church, huge parking lot, there's an elementary school that's been closed. It's a charter school now, rented to CPS, so that does provide and generate some income for the church. But we're talking about an enormous piece of property. And so obviously the pressure here for developers, that's the beautiful communion rail. So the plan is really to create there it is. So you see to the right, the convent, to the right on your screen, the convent there is, we're going to convert that to a B&B style house of pilgrimage.
Gotcha.
And the church would be a shrine.
And the church would be a shrine, yes.
So there would still be masses at the church.
Yes.
Okay, let me put it back. We have 1 minute remaining. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you and Margot, and I want you guys to give me your final words for this 1 minute. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Go ahead, Mary.
There you go ahead.
Well, we're hoping that if you're interested, there are ways to save churches. Please don't give in to developers. Find creative solutions. We have a creative solution that we are really hoping that the Archdiocese of Chicago accepts and approves this plan because it is, as Bruce said, it is an integral part of our communities. Please do not hesitate to contact us. We are at www.societyofstadalbert.org. You can email us at info. There's our information right over here. You can email us at info@societyofstadalbert.org, or please feel free to contact us 773-245-6050. Once again, 773-245-6050.